the man barked. Relief put spring into Nelson's step. He flew through the skating drills, faster, it seemed, than anyone else. But when the man threw out a bag of pucks, Nelson faltered. One thing to shoot a tin can or a block of wood, another to corral a solid disk of vulcanized rubber. The first pass that came his way skittered under his stick. The first shot he took flipped lazily through the air. By the time the scrimmage began, he was eager to make amends, but no one would pass to him. He kept finding open ice, but the puck never came. So he did the only thing he could, fetched the puck himself. Once he had it, he dashed up the ice, through wide-eyed players on both sides. At the blue line, he cut wide on the point and carved himself a path to the net. He saw the goalie's fearful look, the ignominy of letting him score, and room on the far side. He leaned in and fired so hard that blood surged into his hands. The net rippled. Before he could even raise his arms, a cross-check sent him into the boards. After slamming his shoulder, he landed on his back, saw lights, stars. Then everything was eclipsed by a snarling, pimple-faced behemoth. None of this was surprising. It was simply life for a boy like Nelson. And because of his mother, his young, proud, beautiful mother, snatched at 15 from the Pearl River Delta and carried an ocean away to serve the lonely men of Chinatown, one of whom had gotten her with child, Nelson had even been ill-used by his own. He always turned the other cheek, but today he pulled himself up. "What'd you do that for?" Suddenly the boy was upon him, and all the other boys too, their foul mitts in his face. Then someone grabbed him by the scruff of his sweater. Next thing he knew, he was sitting in an office, across from the man in the felt hat. The man examined his clipboard. "Did you put down your name?" Nelson shook his head. The man pushed his hat back, past his widow's peak, then leaned forward, hands clasped. "Look, son, you seem like a nice kid, and a decent player besides. I don't have a problem with anyone who can skate fast and shoot straight. But some of those boys," he jerked his thumb, "have got a problem. And if they've got a problem, then I've got a problem. 'Cause I aim to win. And you can't win with trouble in the locker room. See what I'm saying?" When Nelson said nothing, the man leaned back, drummed his fingers. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out a slip of paper, and pushed it across the desk. "Here's a ticket to a millionaire's game. Why don't you take it?" Nelson stared, searching for a crack in the man's resolve. Seeing none, he snatched the ticket and left. 2 nights later, he was back at the rink, gazing down at the massive slab of marble that was the ice. At the age of 9, on an evening when his mother had asked him to make himself scarce, he and Sammy Kong had snuck in the gate and scrabbled up to the very last row and looked out for the very first time onto that big barn of a building, all wood and naked joists. Back then, Nelson knew as much about hockey as most people in Vancouver did, which is to say, very little. He was struck by the sounds, the rasp of skates, the clap of sticks, the booming report of a hard shot into the boards. He was also struck by the speed, the way the players' hair seemed to blow in the wind. But nothing compared to Fred Cyclone Taylor, the best player in the world, throwing the first heavy hit, which shook the whole building and brought the crowd to its feet, thunderously. Nelson had been hooked ever since. Unlike that first time, there were now 2 blue lines painted across the ice, and goalies were allowed to fall to their knees, and he was close to the action, closer than he'd ever been. But the evening would stay in his mind for other reasons. During the first intermission, a man with a megaphone shuffled onto the ice and said, "Here for your entertainment, a daring bunch of hockeyists, the Vancouver Amazons." When 7 players took to the ice in wool caps and culottes, a wave of laughter swept through the crowd. Nelson